Good morning and namaste everyone. Welcome to the Nepal Dialogue UK 14th webinar, 7th panel discussion. My name is Sushma Basnet and I am one of the team member of Center for Nepal Studies UK. And we have our team members, Dr. Krishna Adhikari, Lokendra Dhakalsar, Sangeeta Shrestha, and Naresh Kapangi. We are the co-team members behind this webinar series that we have been successfully conducting for the past 1 year, first Saturday of every month. Before we begin, I'd like to make a brief announcement. Our panelist, advocate, and prominent Gen Z leader, Ms. Tanuja Pandey, has had to withdraw this morning due to the unfortunate passing of her grandmother. We extend our sincere condolences to her and her family. This sudden and unavoidable situation means that we have 2 panelists today instead of 3. While this may appear less inclusive, it was not possible at this late stage to find a suitable replacement. Hence, rather than canceling the event, we decided to proceed and appreciate your kind understanding. We are nevertheless fortunate to have 2 highly experienced academics who will lead today's discussion. I will now hand over to Dr. Krishna Adhikari, sir, and he will lead the series. Thank you. Krishna, sir.
Thank you, Susmaji. Once again, warm welcome to the Nepal Dialogue UK, and this is the 14th webinar and 7th panel discussion we're having. We are very fortunate and grateful to have our esteemed panelists, as Susmaji announced. Sadly, our third panelist, Tanuja Pandey, had to withdraw. We send our condolences to her. As usual, I just would like to remind our participants that please stay muted and actively engage as we proceed by putting your comments and questions through chat box, and our panelists will take them as much as possible. Let me just introduce today's panel title, since there's the third panelist is back end. We have a little time, so usually I don't introduce the topic itself because the panelists would present and it will be obvious through them. But over the past 75 years, Nepal has witnessed multiple revolutions and regime changes, at least 7 major political movements since 1951. The recent Gen Z movement marked another critical moment driven largely by demands for good governance and end to institutional corruption, political instability, elite power sharing among a few long-entrenched leaders, and the rise of political dynasties amid shrinking opportunities for young people, forcing mass youth migration. The protest of 8 September and the violence of 9 September came as a shock, echoing a broader global wave of youth movement seen in countries such as Indonesia and Bangladesh, and what followed in Madagascar. Around 76 people lost their lives over 2 days, with many more injured. Serious questions remain unanswered about the origin of the violence and the roles of various political actors, internal and foreign. You may recall we organized a panel on Gen Z movement in our 2025 October dialogue. As often in Nepal's history, democratic gains were preserved. A civilian government has formed. Elections are scheduled for 5th March, and new political dynamics are emerging alongside familiar continuities. With all political actors now actively electioneering, elections plans are most likely to go ahead, though court cases challenging the dissolution of the elected house is pending. In this context, today's panel asks Nepal's contemporary political trajectory, what lies ahead? Please allow me to introduce our esteemed panelists today. We have now 2. Let me start from Professor Alok Bohora. Professor Alok Kumar Bohora is a professor emeritus of economics at the University of New Mexico, where he served for 38 years. His research spans public and environmental health, sustainable development, environmental economics, and citizen science, with long-standing field-based work in Nepal and the Himalayan region. He has published nearly 150 peer-reviewed articles and chair or co-chair 40 PhD dissertations, and is widely respected for his extensive mentorship and globally engaged scholarship. Beyond academia, he was an early contributor to the original proposal for Nepal's federal structure and mixed proportional system. His civic writing appears under Nepal Unplugged, where he addresses higher education reform, good governance, diaspora engagement, and constitutional reform. Applying systems and complexity thinking to Nepal's political economy, institutions, and contemporary civic movement. Also causes and consequences of civic uprisings, including the recent Gen Z movement. So this all makes him as one of the excellent panelists today. Let me now move to Dr. Uddhab Pyakurel, who is Dean of the School of Arts and the Associate Professor of Political Sociology at Kathmandu University. He also served as Acting Director of Global Engagement from the university. A PhD from JNU, his work applies systems and complexity thinking to analyze Nepal's political economy, social exclusion, and the dynamics of civic uprisings. He has authored and co-authored several influential books, including Maoist Movement in Nepal, A Sociological Perspective, Reproduction of Inequality and Social Exclusion, and a major study on Dalit and caste-based marginalization in Nepal. He has also co-edited volumes on global social movements and authoritarian capitalism. Dr. Pyakurel's recent work examines the causes and consequences of Nepal's Gen Z movement, highlighting how governance failures, economic precarity, and digital mobilization interact to reshape contemporary civic action. With this short bios, I would like to now move to the panel presentation. The format of the panel presentation is that we are aiming to finish this within 1.5 hours. Each panelist making initial remarks for about 10 minutes. Since we don't have the third panelist today, so if they take slightly, run over slightly the time, which is also fine. With this, I would like to ask Professor Alok Bohora to make his initial presentation. Thank you, Bohora. And then we'll move to the.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm glad to be here. I think there are three questions that I'll try to cover within this 10 to 15 minutes time. Number one is how, the question was how the Gen Z movement reshaped the party over the last 4 or 5 months since the September event. And with that, I also like to underscore the fact that this event of Gen Z, September, is not a one event. It's the accumulation of the past, what I call smaller crisis, right? So when you have a accumulation of all these crises of the past, whether it's corruption or injustices or economic hardships or the total political maneuvering, everything. So that these are what I call mini crises. And these mini crises, whether socially occurring or at the political platform, within party or across, these are mini crises leading to what I call the meta crisis. And that's where when the system starts to pile up all of these, what I call the fuels, starts to create this triggering mechanism. And when that happens, the whole system collapses, right? So that's what the Gen Z movement was. It's very unorganized. It's a leaderless. And at the time of this technologically connected society, Oh, that was kind of inevitable. I had written about that back in, let's say, May, that the Nepal condition is very ripe for such a collapse. So anyway, and you've seen that all over, as the introduction said, which is Bangladesh, Kenya, and Indonesia, Philippines, Madagascar, Morocco. All of these have a very common thread. Dissatisfaction, accumulated thing, collapsing, right? So that's the idea. And the system, when it doesn't recalibrate or what's self-correction, right? In Nepal, for years, we're told that this democratic system is self-correcting mechanism and everything will be fine. And of course, without the institutional constraints, self-correction doesn't happen. Okay, so that's a sort of a background. And then, so how did it reshape? I think the way to think about it, not the shock, I call it shock, right? They're like a natural shock or man-made shock. So this is some sort of a movement or a shock of its own kind. But then this shock is not to change the leader. I think it changed the incentive. So over the 5 months, if you look at it very deeply, I think the thing is not about the leaders particular. It's about the incentive, how it changed. And the other thing also, the way to look at the Genji is that it raised the cost of delay, right? So basically, Genji movement raised what I call the cost of delay and cost of silence. So when I say cost of silence means the governance not responding to the needs of the people, whether that's the justice, remittances, economic poverty, whatever it is, that the system or the political parties did not respond. So it was like they were silent on those. They were very active in their own political maneuvering, but not in responding to the needs of the people, especially the youth, who were leaving the country in droves, like 100,000 a year to seek higher education elsewhere. So that's a very dire situation. And they also kept delaying it. There were lots of voices asking them to respond to all of these situations, but they delayed that. So silence and the delay was very costly. So that's what it raised, Genji. So meaning that the business as usual moving forward is very risky. I mean, that's the message has been sent to the public in our, let's say, society that, yeah, this non-action from the government is very risky. So it exposed that risk factor in the country. And so that's the second thing, right? So for example, how is it risky? Right? How is it costly? So that Genji movement created, let's say, suspension of the parliament, new interim government, new election was declared, even within the, let's say, Nepali Congress led by Gagan, recalibration happened, right? All of these are the responses within the last 5 months created by Genji's movement, including, like the former PM Oli tightening his grip within the UML party. These are all the responses of the institution and the people. And I'll go a little bit deeper the next question, and so on. So basically, the way to think about the Genji did not dictate the outcome. So it's not about the outcome. So a lot of time people try to link the outcome to the Genji movement. No, it's not about the outcome. It is about the inaction and how expensive it is. So that's the incentive shift or the realignment is the outcome, not the outcome of the Genji's led, whatever the reshuffling happens, right? So think of the Genji movement as a shock that realigns incentive and so on. So the next question is, how did incentives and alignment shape? So I'll give you some examples, right? For example, the people's behavior changed as well as the institutions also responded. So one thing that happened was the ambiguity closed. I call it ambiguity, like institutional ambiguity. So what do I mean by institutional ambiguity? Ambiguity is within, let's say, for example, within the party, right? Leadership challenge within the, let's say, for example, Nepali Congress. So that's the ambiguity that was there, which is like some people were fence-sitter and Gagan led the reform because that's what a shock does. When the shock happens, system has to respond. So Nepali Congress, or the group led by Gagan, tried to make some changes within Nepali Congress, right? So what happened? You have the, like Dr. Shekhar Koirala, Deuba group, like Dr. Sunil Sharma, even Dr. Chandra Bhandari, Dr. Mirendra Rizal. I'm not mentioning names, just an example that how these leaders within Nepali Congress became the fence-sitter, right? When the Gagan started to respond to the changes demand of reform, good governance, that's what he was responding to taking the country in a new direction. So, and the issue went to the election commission, right? Election commission was there with the ambiguity, where is it going to grant this legitimacy to the special convention, or it will side with the old guard. So that was the ambiguity. So when EC within 24 hours gave the verdict, whole thing changed again, right? So the thing about that, the institutional ambiguity, that's very key in our Nepal politics. So the institutional ambiguity does this people in a different camp or in action. When EC came out and gave the verdict within the 24 hours or within the 48 hours, everything changed. So the same people who were against this, the move to reform, they realigned again. So what I'm trying to say is that what it did was this Genji movement, it aligned re-incentives. People realigned and then formed coalition, and off we go. So that's the kind of, when you remove the institutional ambiguity, it does affect the way institution behaves, as well as the member or the behavior of the people or the actors. So the one question, third question that you asked me to address was, why did Nepali Congress change and others didn't? Well, the way to think about it is, remember that I'm not talking about the personality here. I'm talking about the structure and the process, right? I think the within the Congress Party, what I call the internal contestation, right? To contest and have a dissension within the party system is still possible. So when you don't have a regimented system, organization, like the left, like the UML and the Maoists are very tightly run organization, whereas Nepali Congress is a little loose in that. So you're not generally, people are not kicked out of the system, of the party. So I think that's why one is a little bit flexible, like Nepali Congress, why they changed, but other didn't. So that was the question. So I'm saying that there's no banishment, right? Let's see, not much verbal humiliating attack, right, by the leader to the other. So I think that it's a little bit of a flexible issues, right? A flexible system within the Nepali Congress. So I see a hand. I saw the raised hand.
No. Please carry on.
Okay, sorry. So anyway, and the Nepali Congress is not as regimented. And that's one of the reasons it was able to reform, as opposed to the UML, which is a highly tightly controlled organization, right? So when you have an organization very rigid, its response will be less flexible, as opposed to organization that is more decentralized. So I'm not saying Nepali Congress is highly decentralized organization, but relatively speaking, so it was able to respond, lodge its dissension voices, and then have a correction, right? So that's the that's the kind of a very overview, my opinion about why one party was able to respond, but not the other one, right? So, and the question becomes, why is it important to discuss the party thing I just talked about, right? Like the response of the party to certain shock and reforming itself. Well, if the party is not able to function internally, democratically, so it's just if they cannot do that internally, how can we expect them to run the country? So the party has to be democratic, and it also has to allow the, let's say, what I call the public feedback loop, right? Instead of a top-down version, have a bottom represented with a periodic feedback. So any party that allowed itself to accommodate such public feedback loop will be able to see its importance with democratic ideal within the larger context of the country. So if the party is very autocratically run, how could you expect them to democratically run the entire nation? So that's why we have to focus on the party functioning, which is the renewal of leadership, internal democracy, right? Or even the fielding of the candidates in the field for election has to be democratically done, which is instead of providing the tickets from the top down, have a primaries or something similar to it. So that's why it's important to focus on the party's own internal organization and their functioning democratic ideals and how they respond. And I think I have mentioned that a couple of times in the past in my writing, that even the Constitution mandates parties to run democratically. So the constitutional provision 269(4)(a) specifically says that the party has to be democratically run. And yet, Election Commission has never imposed that requirement on the parties. And the parties are run like a private club. So the question is, this kind of a shock, Genji, forced them to respond to that demand, which is party cannot be like a private club. It has to be very democratic and open organization. So I think you have to keep that in mind also, how the Election Commission actually failed to implement such an important clause, which is in the Constitution. Over the 30 years, we have never seen Election Commission asking, or even the civil society asking forcefully, parties to be democratically run. So I think this Genji forced that now. So it's only the matter of time now where UML has to be responding to that and allow new renewal. You cannot have the same three leaders like Deuba, Oli, and Prachanda. We've been running the country for the last 30 years to keep continuing the same structure moving forward using what I call the collusionary system, right? Instead of cooperation, they use each other's whatever, the collusionary practice to continue running the country. So that's basically my third point. And finally, looking forward, Genji. So what lies ahead for them, right? So that's another important concept. So I've written a few articles, essays on this, and I think the Genji, it's not a party, right? In my view, Genji should not be a party. That's what I said. You can have a, let's say, those who might, in a spirit way, represent the Genji's call for changes, renewal, all that. You can see, say, Kulman, the familiar actors like Kulman or Harka Sampang, Balin, or even to some extent Rabi. So these are sort of a Genji mentors, aspirants. That's what I call, right? So these people, although Genji gave them some sort of a, what I call the strength, right? To come together, coordinate, and lead that movement. But Genji as such in my view, should not be a party, right? Genji. And they can be some sort of a civic organization, civic pressure group. And if they could, even though there are so many different Genji organizations, last time I saw, there was about like 30 of them, right? So I think it's a strength. In my view, the Genji as what I call, it's like a flat model, right? These are all different Genji organizations all across, organically coordinating, coming together to express their dissatisfaction, causing such a big shock. So same energy they could probably use going forward as a civic pressure group. So the question is, how can they do that? So the idea is not to create a Genji party, because anytime so we need in Nepal a very independent pressure group. Currently, the civil society of Nepal has not been doing that. They did a wonderful job back in 1990 when the people fought for multi-party democracy, and subsequently several such incidents. But I think we need a very continuously energized, high-energy pressure group that can act like what I call the watchdog, right? For example, what are the kinds of things they might be able to do? Let's say I have what I call, I'm not saying parallel parliament, but at least they can focus on some of the parliamentary bill, discuss that, and then create a little, I hate to use the word lobbying, but the pressure to make that happen. Instead of taking like a 10, 15 different agenda, pick a one or two that they feel very important. For example, good governance. And they can work on some of the countries have done that. Civil society have pulled together their energy to push for some parliamentary bill. So they can act on that. They can also create what I call parliamentary member accountability dashboard, where they should keep track of the performance of the parliamentary member, right? So they can do that publicly. What they worked on, what they voted for, what their agenda are. So they can even rank those parliamentary members in a civil setting. So they can do that. Actually, there's already a Genji young people creating anti-corruption dashboard. So they already, it's called, I think if I remember correctly, it's called Jawafdehi. So it's called anti-corruption dashboard they're creating. And they have several scandal, well-researched and archived, so that journalists or the concerned people can go and look at exactly what the case is and what's the hearings. So it's like hundreds of documents, publicly available documents with their network. They have created a portal of our country's scandal, including that this Sahakari or cooperative scandal that Rabi was involved in. They have a detailed archival material there. So the journalists can go and look at it very in detail, right?
Professor Bohora, can I
Yes.
ask you to wrap up? And
Yes.
you can come back and you can discuss more. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
So that's one, the anti-corruption portal that the Genji could get involved in. They're starting it. And the other thing is to be what I call the, say, civic democratic group, like pressure group, which keeps track of parties' internal democratic through an index. Create an index and keep track of their democratic practices and whatever to create this index. And it's been done very widely by various groups around the world called Party Democratic Index. There's a very huge literature available. So anyway, so these four things is what I was supposed to give you a little bit of my thought. And so hopefully you found some of them interesting. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Very interesting, both academically also framed about the Nepal's political process. Thank you. Our next panelist, Dr. Pyakurel, I hope he will be giving us more on the grounded, focusing more on the election process and other things. But whatever he thinks is the best. He's from in Kathmandu at the moment, so we also would like to hear what is in the ground zero there. Dr. Pyakurel, over to you. 10 minutes, but if you have to go slightly over, that's fine. But I think keeping in time, we can come back and do more discussions.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Krishna sir, for this opportunity, and thank you, Alok sir, for having this setting this context so that I can go further. And whatever Krishna sir just mentioned, I guess the way panel was organized, I being in Nepal has to have a bit report situation as well. Thank you very much. Given the context of Professor Bohora, I was asked to highlight some local situation. For example, what is happening in the name of election in the country. And couple of things are there. Number one, while Gen Z movement was there just after this government had to announce a new election of the parliament, because constitutionally it was said that there should be parliament at any cost within 6 months. There was no other option. That is how election of the parliament was announced, election of the House of Representative. And you must be knowing in Nepal, yes, we follow bicameral system, but the National Assembly is sort of permanent. There is no way to dissolve it, but House of Representative can have at least 6 month gap. Given this situation, once election was announced, everyone, almost 90% people, or maybe more than that, were having a doubt, saying that whether election happens. And I was one of them to at least narrate the history and say that yes, election is the only way, and election will happen and should happen. And if you ask me this situation today, I could proudly mention saying that yes, the environment is towards election, and I don't think that there is any doubt regarding election, because campaign is all this candidacy and all preparations has been already done. Along with this, I agree with Professor Bohora saying that a couple of things he mentioned. For example, Gen Z forced to democratize parties, but and also he mentioned saying that how much party responded. That was also, there is no issue to disagree with him. But there are a couple of things also to be highlighted. He hinted this a bit, but I try to be a bit candid, saying that along with whatever outcome we expected, expectation of outcome could be according to my wishful thinking. But for Nepal's parliamentary democracy, I guess some examples were set along with this party democratization process, and also electoral preparation. Okay, number one, he hinted only, but as mentioned, I'll highlight. This is the election after a couple of years where every party, almost the major parties, fill up their candidacy at least almost in every constituency. And that might be one of the demand of the political party cadres within the locality, at least to ensure their rights to contest election. Whether they lose or win, that is another context, but having this right to be there as party cadre and also fight election was their essential demand. And might be this is how one very crucial point of departure you could see out of this scenario from the ground. Every party has 165 candidates, and they are competing quite nicely. Number two, many people say that this campaign is not at the stage of the way they try to see in the previous election, but at least as of now, whatever was expected by even some so-called security forces, security experts earlier, there would be violence before the election. And that very violence-oriented any campaign were not experienced as of now. This is number two kind of good example we could say out of this practice. And number three, uh, as of now, this election commission and government and also parties, even those parties were opposing this election initially, are ready to follow this process, and all are agreeing, all are ready to go for. This is a good part of this election related thing, at least in Nepal. Number two, I was given kind of expectation from organizers saying that what could be the outcome of the election, or can we predict some post-election scenario? I guess again to repeat whatever is being highlighted by Professor Bohora. Yes, there are some this Gen Z aspirant people, a person or party or some forces. Out of them, one is still saying that this faction is not going to attend this election. This is the one of the groups which was trying to show up, saying that it was also part of this movement, this Prasai group. Otherwise, everyone is in the field, but I'm a bit skeptical regarding the name Rabi, whether he was real Gen Z aspirant or Gen Z promoted person, but he also tried to be flexible, incorporating Balen or inviting Balen Saha, who was a real Gen Z aspirant according to the scenario you could see at that time, in his party, so that he also tried to revamp and also tried to say that I'm also pro Gen Z force. Then might be this has indicated couple of this post-election scenario, saying that might be Balen plus will be a determinant factor in the upcoming election. Otherwise, even if this democratization was the main issue for this Gen Z movement, party democratization was main issue, but largely, if that very component was not seen, at least lately, then again it would be kind of repetition of election, and largely mainstream parties, which are termed as old parties today, could be having the highest say. That is why today, yes, there are more 3 weeks for campaign. That is why it is quite early for us to at least go for this projection, or futuristic orientation might take a bit time, at least 2 more weeks. Then only we can predict something like this. But at least today we could see that all three forces were named as older, and this Balin Plus might be having a tough competition. And as mentioned earlier, this Nepali Congress with kind of democratization process or new reorientation of Nepali Congress has become quite popular, at least within Gen Z, even if it was a bit late for them to re-emerge or come with this reorientation or restructuring within party. And I agree everything mentioned by Professor Bohora regarding Nepali Congress and the way it tried to respond to the movement and the way it is trying to be immersed in the post-election scenario. But the final concern given by Krishna ji seems to be a bit interesting for me as well, because if I try to go through the ground reality of kind of actors today and agendas and at least debate within the locality or grounded debate in the during the election campaign, you see, I guess after this Gen Z movement, uh, at least for researchers like us, it's a bit disappointing scenario, because only the debate in the ground is new versus old. There is no debate about agenda. Who brings what is not properly discussed by the voters? Neither most of the candidates started having new ideas. Only the idea they carry forward could be the old idea. If I become the MP, I'll mobilize the budget and I'll do development work. And this is what this old and in fact incorrect agendas are being popular rather than policy orientation or other issues which were supposed to be the agenda after changes. Earlier also it was criticized saying that whether a member parliament can be the major actor of the development. Earlier it was the case because decentralization was kind of state apparatus rather than evolution of power. But now this constitution has been very radical, and there is local government to take up or take over all the development projects because they are given very nice, very much power by the constitution, and also there is mechanism because regular elections are happening, and in fact even whatever we try to collect as this public perception, local government are doing good. But on the one hand, we say that local government is there for this development agenda and they are doing good. But even today, people demand for development related activities and allocation of the budget from the member of parliament candidates. And those experienced member of parliaments, former member of parliaments, former ministers also try to convince people saying that if I am elected, I'll do this and that development. So that is kind of worrisome for me, because then again the similar or almost the same thing is happening in the future also, even if we have new parliament with new people. So the discourse and also what kind of this policy departure this Gen Z protest try to lead, that very agenda had to be discussed, at least according to me, in the field. But that was totally, in a way, absent in the debate. Some people say that this Gen Z protest was nothing. They might have forgotten kind of intensity of that very protest. Krishna ji also highlighted, and Professor Bohora also highlighted. Some of them at least asserts as if that was normal situation, forgetting all the severity of that very movement. And also people also tried not to think of in a different way after that very departure of regular political activity, because we had to dismiss parliament and we had to go for the new election, not because of normal situation, rather it was due to the special and very sincere and see this very intense Gen Z aspiration. So if we forget this, then what happens in the next couple of years? Might be we'll go for further instability, or might be we'll go for further anxiety within the people. That is why, for me, whatever grounded debate or agenda is seen today is a bit disappointing, because um, I was hoping for a bit better discussion regarding this, where country is heading towards, what could be the new policy aided by the member parliament, meaning whole House of Representative, and then only might be some sort of addressal of this movement will be seen in the future, might be after this election happens. But if we don't debate about the agenda, if we debate only new versus old, and then might be, for example, this very movement will be in a way hijacked by handful of the people without having no vision, no mission, mission, and eventually it will be another chaos. I understand if we ask this for the new aspirant politicians, then they say that what happened if even if you recall, if even if I recall previous debate of election manifesto, party's policy to head country, etc., then today the counter question is coming all the way from those who think of going for alternative, saying that what happened even if you discuss that very policy and program previously, eventually it is the political actors who do not implement it. But yes, it was the case. That is why this movement has happened. But
Right,
today,
Dr. Pyakurel,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt.
I'll 2
Yeah,
minutes.
please wrap up.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yes, earlier that was the mistake. Only documents were there, but there was no implementation. That is why this protest raised this issue, and also even this very movement forced, if I borrow Professor Bohra's words, then forced parties to democratize. Then today's concern could be that should be a democratic discussion on manifesto, on policy, on the futuristic approaches of the party or country, rather than stopping this, saying that, oh, even if you talk, nothing implement. But today's concern could be every day we have to discuss through media, through academic discussion, even through whatever platform is there. And then the different thing today could be, for example, earlier might be interest group might not be interested to debate on this, but today everyone is media. Everyone has their this access to media through this gadget. Then why not we start debating, or why not we start questioning who said what, and whether he or she is trying to implement whatever he or she said during the election campaign. So this very opportunity is there due to this social media, and also this revolution of this gadget and everything. Everyone has this mobile and other thing to at least assert, saying that I am also the media. So then my final concern could be, instead of going away from this debate, we should have further debate, and we should keep following this debate, and that might be way for democratization of Nepali society, and also way to force democratization of leadership or parliamentarians in the future, or to at least force them or compel them to implement whatever they say during the election campaign. So, I look forward, at least we have time, at least 3 weeks, and might be my society, because we are the people to decide this. We are the people to decide agenda. We are the people to decide our representative. But what is the basis for deciding this could be through policy and debate. And we have no exception, or we have no alternative to drag them for the debate and keep following them, so that they should at least tell us that something has been done according to their promise during the election campaign. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pyakurel, bringing very much practical issues grappling the nation of Nepal as we proceed for the election, and also try to address a few questions that we raised for your preparation. We have questions here, which I also like our panelists to look at when they have chance, but I will also point them. We have about half an hour plus, I think, time to discuss. This is a very broad topic, and there's a range of issues, and it's hard to cover anyway. We'll be doing very tangential treatment to them. I wanted to first raise this idea of civil service that came in the remarks of Professor Alok Bohora. And also Meena Paudel has asked this question of civil service, civil society. I mean, there's one question in Nepal, that whether there is a civil society at all. There are, various, obviously in the past, for example, the 2063 Jana Andolan, civil society obviously played a very big role. But has there been a demise of civil society? And anybody pretending to act as a civil society, as an NGO or something, are now very much vilified, or are themselves co-opted either to the political parties or seen as an agent of the foreign hands or something like that. So is there any civil society there, or can Genji be a civil society itself? Of course, the way it played the political role it was. But what's your third take on it, Professor Bohora? Very briefly on this one, then we'll move on. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the civil society in many democratic countries are the backbone of what I call the middle corridor democratic process, right? So you have to have a not too chaotic fragmentation or despotic regime, keeping them in the middle, what I call the middle corridor of democratic process. And one way to put the country in the middle is by challenging the state, right? So the civil society could be the medium to challenge the state, taking the grievances of the common people, and the government or the politicians keep revising their plans and processes in response to the need of the people. And this civil society in the middle plays that role. And in Nepal, I think they initially played that role beautifully for establishing the multi-party, because they were all driven by one common theme called liberty and freedom. And that's where they did the best work, demanding for liberty, and they mobilized and so on. Beyond that, I think Nepal went into this drive, what I call the elite overproduction model. So Nepal created more elites in terms of the media and the patronage culture and so on. So I think the civil society also became a part of the tribal discourse. So we don't have very independent a group of civil society challenging the current political system. So that's missing. And the question to you was, I think that's exactly what the Genji tried to fill in, because civil society was not demanding accountability. They were not demanding the stop of the collusionary parties, like the musical chair PM ships. They were not challenging that. So they were silent on many of those crucial events where the Genji filled in. So yes, in a way, but later I'll give you a couple of more examples as to how Genji could fill in that role. But I think that's my take on these two aspects for now.
Thank you. I'm sure Uddhabji has something to say on this one, especially the way civil society receives wrath and resistance in Nepal, and also often blamed and vilified as if they are acting for someone else from outside. Minaji, I think, who has played a great role in very long time in Nepal civil society process, has highlighted the conspicuous absence of the people who usually represent civil society in this Gen Z movement. Maybe we should move because there are more interest on the elections and other things. I think this brings to me the point I raised about the foreign relations. There have been at least 3 questions also asked on this one. How the foreign relations, the geopolitics shaping Nepal's, influencing Nepal's election, to what was the role during Gen Z movement, and so on. Can we talk a little bit about how do we handle of this idea of geopolitics? How do we handle our neighbors and others who keep interest to Nepal for our own benefit, without letting them to be a lot influential? Maybe let's start from Uddhabji very briefly, of course, very broad topic.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I agree largely on this question of civil society with Professor Bohora and you. And why it was so partisan, also I have my own analysis. For example, if there was this ups and down in democracy, then everyone had to take either or side for their own survival. That is why if there is stable democracy, then only civil society will be emerged strongly, quite well. And you also rightly mentioning Gen Z took this civil society space, and even today there are some Gen Z protester leaders who were in the front while there was protest, and also there are other eminent persons, and even this media and others are also playing quite a good role as if they are civil society. And regarding this, I could see many questions whether geopolitics matter, what neighborhood is doing. Nepal has to deal with geopolitics, and we are in a very prominent place in a positive sense as far as this geopolitics is concerned. And we, as of now, are trying to manage it quite well. For example, I recall always I recall this book, this Strategy for Survival by American scholar. And that is what was our past, and that should be our future and also our present scenario. My concern could be, for example, everyone tell or blame if something happened wrong. Instead of blaming ourselves, we try to blame others, saying that this neighbor or this country might have played quite a big role. But I try to look at myself. What was my role? Whether I have given space for them to play. If there is a space provided for neighborhood to play, definitely everyone is ready to play. But my way of conducting could be, I shall manage my house. I shall keep my house in order. That is what is my understanding regarding how to deal with the neighborhood. And largely, if you try to follow, yes, definitely they have their security concern and etc. But as far as democratization is concerned, I don't think that none of neighbors try to impose things, at least in Nepal. Yes, sometimes they put their agenda forward, but the way we try to deal, eventually they convince. Take an example of while Nepal was trying to federalize itself, both the neighbors had their concern, but lately they accepted. And constitution related issue also, yes, there was ups and down, there was concern, but eventually they accepted this constitution and etc. So, so we should not be worried about neighbors. Rather, we should worry about within us whether this election result will accommodate aspiration of all Nepalis, so that there would be no ground for foreigners to play. I guess being a weak neighbor politically or through the security angle, we should not blame others. Rather than we should keep our house in order. That is what I can say right here.
Yeah, Professor Bohora, because this is a very broad topic, and at least three people. Let me name them. I think we also got this convenience of naming the people who put question. Is Boz Baral, Ben Dunat, and Alok K. They put this point about foreign influence, ranging from whether it could be an election debate of the China-Indian influence to the foreign powers playing roles in Genji movement and so on. Anyway, can you quickly have your thoughts, very brief one, because we want to move to
and in terms of the foreign influence, I take it very differently, which is Nepal sits in the middle of two giant economic power, right? India and China. And yet we have not been able to take advantage of. I see that as an asset, not the liabilities, number one. Second is, and I agree with my colleague who said that if the house is not in order, of course it's going to invite interferences. So that's exactly what happens in Nepal. So give you an example. When our constitution is not clear on who can lead the government, let's say, if our constitution, just a practical example, if the constitution were very clear that only the largest party can lead the government, let's say if the constitution were very clear on that, then last time the third party would not have been able to form the government. So when you have such a third party, small party, trying to play bigger party against each other, of course, that's when the influence comes, persuasion comes. You are opening, there's a vulnerability to the interference, that how you allow other parties to come in and negotiate for you. So when you are fragile system, that's when it invites interferences. So that's my opinion on that. In terms of taking this foreign geopolitics and converting that into towards our benefit is the way forward, which is perhaps Nepal using, not playing India against China, but using Nepal as a corridorial link between the two vast economies, and have a it's like I even would suggest new, whoever comes into power, to create a summit in Kathmandu, China, India, Nepal, to think of a new horizon, how that landscape can be the beacon of sort of a regional cooperation for the benefit of all three. Because I'm talking about like a trans-Himalayan network between India and China, opening the market and creating Nepal as a basin of innovation, creativity, and using its, let's say, youth or technology, whatever that can be done to facilitate the link between the two. I think I'd like to see the geopolitics in a very different way, turn it around for the benefit of Nepal, rather than always being fearful of the interference and always getting paranoid about that. So I just don't believe in such a paranoid approach to foreign policy or geopolitical status.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Professor Bohora. Even though we have been also talking about the election, but I think this is one very important question, that's very much relevant to your initial remarks. The role of institutions here. I just wanted to quickly bring in this question by Bhagirath Yogi. How do you see the role of army, especially during the September 9 violence and its immediate aftermath? And I think when he say army, he said Nepal army. If you have got any thought on that one, because that question is directly posted to you.
Yeah, I think this basically, when the crisis happens, the country becomes very what I call vacant. of no power, no parliament. And I think we all were watching every hour. I think that's when a stabilizing force in Nepal right now is the Nepal army, right? That Nepal army played their, however imperfect role, to keep the country from going downhill in a very in a very bad place. So that stopped because, I mean, imagine you have a very large superpowers in both north and south. And when you have a chaotic situation and vacuum, you can't expect it to remain vacuum for a long time. Something's going to cave in. And that's where Army played its role, however imperfect, to keep that transition from chaos to some sort of a process. So that's how I see the Army's role there. Nothing more, nothing less. That's it. They played a vital role in creating this transition in a very, very difficult time. So we have to appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, this is also a very big topic, and I'm sure we can have a long debate on this one anyway. Let's move on. But also related to, role of various actors, I think, and connecting to election, I'm coming to Uddhabji. A question by Balgopal Srestha about, you said the country is fully in the mood of celebrating election, but also seeing Persai group and who, as I understand, also brought into the table when the Gen Z movement happened and for some kind of a negotiation anyway was cooking on. That is still very active and pleading to boycott. And as you said that, some of the Gen Z groups also are aligning with them. So the idea that, until there is Hindu Rashtra or monarchy are reinstated, so what harm they might be able to cause to the election, and what the future you see in Nepal's politics? And this also is a very big question anyway. I mean, but for the interest of brevity, I think, can you do a...
Thank you. And I try to recall previous election time, and my conclusion was that country is towards the election now. While recalling the past, you might be realizing that there were organized forces to boycott election. They had an announcement, and they also were having weapon and also stating that I won't let this election happen. That was the case in the past, and eventually every election got succeeded in the past. And this time, fortunately, yes, this small group led by Prashai is saying that there should be some revision, there should be something concrete to address their concern and only election. They were not as organized as earlier parties which were boycotting this, number one. And if they are not organized, and they also put this condition saying that if something is being addressed by the government as their demand, and they were silent in that move. That is why, for me, this is a more conducive environment for election than previous time. That is why my hunch could be, yes, Nepal is now towards the election, and there would be no if and but as of now. This is the situation as of now from the ground. And I have, if I try to at least say a few words just to respond to Bhagirath Yogiji's concern. I gave a quote during that time to BBC Nepali Seva as well, which he used to represent, and my argument could be a bit slightly different than that of Professor Bohora, because army, yes, definitely they are the stable force, and they should do the best, but there was some limitation, and might be some weaknesses of army was seen during the protest. That is how the cost we mentioned today was a bit larger than we expect. If army acted promptly, then might be situation could have been a bit not as of today as far as infrastructural collapse and etc. So army as a permanent or stable force being paid by my salary, my expectation was my tax, taxpayers' money was used to at least manage this army cost and etc. My expectation was a bit higher than whatever army did, but eventually the way they try to facilitate for this interim government and election, then that is all right.
Okay, thank you. Of course, as I said, this is a big topic. There more debates can be done. Yeah, we definitely are grateful that the country didn't slide further down, and we are going to hold election. Yeah, you also write that whether we could have prevented some of the worst violence Nepal has ever seen, especially on the second day. So let's not go into that debate now. Uddhabji, linked to this one, the uncertainty of election, if there is any, even though you're very sure, and we all are, I think, seeing the very hopeful scenario that election will take place. But what about this court case that is pending, challenging the dissolution of elected parliament, and would political parties who are not happy really, play part in disturbing this?
Am I audible?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I guess for me, those who are relating this with court case and etc., they have to understand that this is not the regular change. This very change is there because of a very severe or very profoundly organized aspiration of the youth. And they have to recall previous the Jana Andolans as well. And yes, it was a short version of that because it happened in 2-3 days, but very, very, very strong. It was very strong. That is why outcome were also, in a way, profoundly different than other movements. And those who try to link this with court were forgetting this. For example, if it was the case, if court could be knocked for judgment, or if court had to have intervention, then what happened? What could be the case if Rashtriya Panchayat was dissolved and this multi-party system was introduced? What could be the case if this parliament was dissolved and then again there was this interim parliament adding new members in the system? Maoist members were abruptly inserted in the parliament, and it was converted as interim government. And it was along with the people's mandate. It was along with the revolution's mandate. It was along with the Jana Andolan, if you use this term as Nepali. Then if you forget, then you feel like it's normal situation and court can prevail. But today, it was not the case. That is why I don't think that court will have anything to say regarding at least this issue of the parliament, because it was not dissolved by the regular prime minister. It was not normally dissolved. It was an abnormal situation, and it was an outcome of the Jana Andolan. So that has to be remembered, and I don't think that there is any issue to refer this. This is my take on this very aspect.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to this election ideas and process, especially what is the the priority agenda? What's happening with the manifestos? Is this going to be a election of the debate of the policies or the persona? the personalities. Professor Bohora, how are you watching Nepal? What's happening in Nepal in this election in terms of the renewal of policy or innovation of new policies and ideas? How can I say this?
Yeah, I call it the rituals of manifesto, right? That's every election cycle. We go through that display, rituals. All the declarations of reform, justice, renewal, but there always been the distance between what is promised and what is delivered, right? So this has been the experience in the past. So, but I see this from a very different angle, which is, yeah, it's very easy to call your friends, right? Political leader can call your friends and prepare this long manifesto with all the promises. But what's missing is that this is where I bring back the civil society argument again, which is, it's not we haven't asked the right questions. I think that people have been asking all kinds of very good questions, but political parties have never been forced or compelled to answer them. They don't have to answer, right? So manifesto comes and go. So I think this time it is slightly different because they are not just listing the manifesto of what we want to do in the country, right? Of course, remittances, student issues, water. They have, like, for example, 100 days and 100 agenda. Just Rashtriya Swatantra Party just is working on it, or have they have. I mean, that's, with due respect to them, like 100 days is a very kind of a American thing, right? It started from FDR. And he passed 4 or 5 big things, which is Social Security, Medicare, and your bank loan, which is guaranteed by the federal government, so that there wouldn't be any cash rush to the bank that created depression. Okay, crash. So you have this 100-day idea is from that angle. Take 2 or 3 big issues, and that's called political capital is ripe and hot, and you get it done. But Nepal, they go around and say, oh, I have like a 30-page of agenda. Well, what does that mean? Or I have 100 agenda. But the question is, the civil society has to step in and ask not only what they want to do, but how they want to do it. So that's where the missing is. It's not what is expected, but what the process of that getting done, right? So that, like higher education, we all know that we have an issue there, but then ask them how they're going to reform. For example, everyone talks about 25% of our agricultural land is barren. And if you go there, no youths are around to cultivate and do the farming. They're all in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. So the question you have to ask, instead of saying, oh, we have to do this agricultural reform, but how are they going to revitalize that? So these are the kinds of questions that our civil society has not been asking, or the intellectuals. And that's where we need to work on to force them to do it. So anyway, that's my quick.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you. In the interest of time, I think that will be enough for now. I just wanted to come to Uddhabji here about what's the difference in substance between the new and in the so-called new process and the old. If there is no policy debate, if there is no something new to represent the new has been put forth for the public debate. So how are you seeing? Very, very briefly, time.
I already gave some of my thoughts before. And, for me, this election manifesto is like a proposal for PhD. There has to be guidelines so that only people can ask for whether you follow this guideline. This is very important. Otherwise, what to question in the middle of their election, their tenure? So this is the question, and we have at least voters need to know where this country is taking forward by them. So this is why election manifestos are quite important, and that should be debated. And if it was not debated and implemented, that is absolutely correct. What I also mentioned and Bohora ji also mentioned. But today, in the new changing context, at least they should be generous and also objective to bring manifesto short proposal like what, how, and what, why, and how. And then also this will ease us also to debate at least regularly. That is why this is very important and that should be there. But then the question is coming the way new versus old is, old, even if you come up with this debate of long manifesto and you are good in debate, but what did you do? That is why we don't want this. We are new, that is why you have to support it. This is kind of tendency by the new actors today as of now. That might not help us to bring new discourse and new this society with transparency, accountability, and also outcome oriented political orientation. And this is one of the unfortunate thing is happening in the country. And hopefully, as I said earlier also, we should drag every candidates and political parties at least to be objective and at least to be at least bringing their synopsis of what they are going to do in the 5 years time in the future.
Yeah, quickly, I think it doesn't take more than 30 seconds maybe for you to answer this question about the new parties. David Gellner has asked a question: in which places and among which groups are Kulman's party and Harka Sampang's party likely to win votes and seats? Very briefly.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah, this Harkaji is having a stronghold largely in the Eastern Hill because he belonged to that very area, and his ethnic strength is also over there in the Eastern Hill. And I'm told that he's having quite a good influence right there, and might be he will emerge not as very big, but at least with a quite a good size of vote in the east. And for Kulmanji, yes, he was having very good media hype initially once he joined he formed this party. But lately, the way he tried to deal with his deal was not very matured with Rashtriya Swatantra Party, and also the way he tried to quit from the government, that was not very well taken by the people. That is why his popularity went down, and might be his strength should be within Janjatis or ethnic community in Nepal. But I guess that very constituency got also fragmented, and might be he will win the election. That is kind of expectation within Kathmandu, but I guess his position might be further or weaker than even this Harka Sampang in the east.
Okay,
That's
thank
the
you. Thank you. Thank you. Just to warn everyone here, we might just extend by 5 minutes, but we'll finish in time. I just wanted to ask a very important question. I think it is related to election, but also as I see that the corruption was the big agenda during anti-corruption drives was the big agenda during the Genji movement, and election I see as a point where as a kind of the mother of all corruptions happens, overspending, extortion, fundraising, and the political parties and candidate exceeding by many folds the limit imposed by the election commission. So are we really going to see any reforms, any changes? If not, then as Professor Alok said, is a kind of a repeat of the renewal of the ritual. What's happening? Are we really seeing any reforms in in election spending and how the corruption begins? Professor Bohora, very quick thought on this.
I think the you mean the reform in what? Sorry, I just didn't catch it.
The financing,
Yeah.
the expenses during the elections and all kind
Yeah. Yes.
ill spending, if you like.
Right. I think one of the things I've been writing about is uh, um, the finance, like a public financing of the election. I think that's very important for Nepal. And I don't think we will see, if we don't do that strictly with let's say, civic watchdog, I don't think we'll see any reform in that. I think there are so many violations that happen all across, right? For example, cadres being mobilized, right, all across by these parties, somebody has to fund them, right? Whether directly or indirectly. So I think this financing and keeping such a large cadre machine needs money. So it's all about winning election. That's what they do, parties in Nepal. And so when you have such a big, a large network of people, a network, it needs to be financed. I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, unless if the leaders come together, younger leaders, and say, I think one of the issues in Nepal is the public financing. I think that will also help curb corruption, along with the very strong, independent anti-corruption body. So I don't see anytime soon this election financing to correct itself, unless we really do something major.
Right. Okay. I mean, there's more questions keep on coming. I don't think we can go back and take all of them. But the one question about the idea of constitutional reform, at least raised by two people. Obviously today, our aim is not to discuss about the constitution per se, but linked to this one, as David Gellner also has put here, is that the constitutional change, ending federalism or direct election of the PM that at least some people in Genji want will take place if Balin become PM. And Gopal Nepali has a linked question to that. Why Balin, has actually decided to go to Jhapa where he has no base? Is that a part of the grand design? Uddhabji, I know it might not be possible to answer this question, fully, but give us your brief thought, and maybe then I think we'll wrap up.
Might be there are some good things also happening. Balin earlier was not having any idea regarding his view on federalism and etc. But once he landed to Janakpur, he was having very optimistic and very pro federalism idea, and that is what was shared by him to the public in his own, at least I could say, this linguistic constituency. And that has been quite popular, at least in Madhesh, saying that, yes, Madhesh will enjoy more rights and all these provincial structures will be having stronger voice if Rashtriya Swatantra Party led by Balen will emerge. So that is one good part. And also, if we try to look at our parties, Nepali democratic system is such that we have kind of coalition of people. There will be ethnic community, there will be Dalits, there will be Madhesi, and there will be also anti-federal Pahade, these elites. So then, even if a party try to set an agenda which is a bit conservative, anti-federal, even sometimes anti-republic, then eventually they keep this agenda only to lure some people for at least their support, but they won't be candidly going for this very agenda. Take an example of previously organized party as well. They, for the sake of say that I am anti-federal, but they take part this provincial election and etc. So that is kind of positive part, at least in Nepal. And even after this election, I don't think that yes, they keep questioning, they keep raising this voice, but once there is issue of constitutional amendment and etc., I guess they keep mum. And I don't think that a party will be having that much say or majority in the parliament to undo this very process through the constitutional process. So I guess we are safe, at least in these regards.
Right. Okay. I think obviously there were questions about the future likely, it's very hard to get majority under the current electoral system in Nepal and for any party to win majority of seats and those kind of scenarios, and is going to be the repeat of the status quo anyway. But I don't think we have got time to allow discussion on those things. And finally, there was a question about the election.
I might one sentence to at least tell about this. Every Nepali or even every Nepal experts try to mention saying that this very system has no option for parties to go for a majority, and that is, I guess, for me at least, this is incorrect. If a party come up with 42% vote, as elsewhere in the world, definitely even this very system ensure a party to get majority. And you see the scenario, the largest parties, their vote percentage is going down. Take an example of Nepali Congress. From 37 to 25% vote, their strength is going down and still they aspire for majority. If Nepali Congress gets 45% vote, if Rashtriya Swatantra Party gets 45% vote, if any parties get 45% vote, there is chance of having majority. And this is not systemic fault, but the fault is parties are getting unpopular within the community or voters, and they claim, they blame this system, saying that this system won't be allowing me to get majority. I guess that has to be clarified, at least from my
Right.
side.
Okay.
Thank
No,
you.
no, I agree that on the principle anyway. And then, of course, I very much wish that, some party will get that much vote and there will be stable government formed. And I'm a supporter of these, the mixed electoral system, in principle. But I was talking in more practical sense. Anyway, I think Professor Bohora wants to make a point, maybe one-liner, and that would be the
Okay, so
closing
basically,
remarks. Thank you.
yes, two things. One is the question about why Balin in Japa, because he has nothing to lose. It's the big reward game he's playing. So if he wins, he has a big reward. He will be a national leader for about 10 years. That's what he's looking at. And then about the reform thing, yeah, lots of proportional system, as you said, around the world function quite well. So it's not the issue. Issue is the parliamentary, what I call the math manipulation is the issue. So if we can remove that, for example, so that math manipulation, when I say that, meaning once the lower parliament is elected with the proportional, all the, whatever the electoral division is, then the parties collude to divvy up the upper house, and they also share and elect the president, meaning all three electoral bodies, instead of being independent, are all tied to the same source, which is the math of the parliamentary members. So you cannot have a system which is so entangled. Upper house depends on the lower house, and they all get together and create the president. So this is one of the proposal I had, would be to ceremonial president, but broader electoral election, like either directly elect, and they have done that in a couple of countries, that the ceremonial president can be directly elected instead of Congress and UML getting together and picking their candidate. That should be reformed. Second is, instead of, and the upper house should be directly elected. Right now, they are all sitting together to, like the person gets defeated and as a reward to their patronage system, and they appoint them to the upper house. So what's the point of doing all of that, right? It's all the collusionary politics we have to remove. So upper house, if I were to offer amendment in constitutional, would be to directly elect, so that separates from the lower house, as well as the president directly elected, or a broader mandate. That also is outside all the collusionary politics we have been seeing for the last 30 years.
Thank you. Thank you. I think with this, we have come to close. I just, as a matter of acknowledgement, I just wanted to say that we had a few other questions by Krishna Adhikari, Vishnu, and Krishna from remote places. Thank you for asking question. I think more or less these things have been either covered or they were outside the remit of our today's theme, and time wouldn't allow us to deal everything. And I would like to sincerely thank, and I couldn't thank more, to Professor Bohora, getting up at 3 a.m. And so actively and with energy and force, putting your very productive thoughts and ideas, and also Uddhabji, not only for giving us the scenario from the ground and your thoughts, but also helping us put together this event. We sadly had to miss Tanuja today, who would have brought a very lively perspective from the Gen Z, because she's academically very sound and also Gen Z activist. But we had to do this, and above all, our sincere gratitude goes to all the participants and all those who have raised really good and interesting questions. And I shouldn't be thanking my own colleagues, but I think I should do this because of the all the works they do. My colleague Lokendra Dhakal, Executive Director of CNSUK, and Dr. Susma Basnet. And of course, other advisors, including Professor Gelna here. Thank you very much. And the next month, let me now announce for the next month. As I would like to inform you that we organize Nepal Dialogue every month, first Saturday of the month at 10 a.m. UK time, fixed time. This month we have, today we had panel. Next month we have got academic, research talk seminar to be given by Dr. Tina Srest on the Nepali diaspora in comparative perspective, US and diaspora in the East Asia. That's going to be a very interesting event. Please.